Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Anthony Goliver, a defensive GA at UCLA. In this conversation, Coach Goliver discusses his transition from serving in the U.S. Marine Corps to coaching at UCLA, getting the opportunity to coach on base while in Japan, and his future goals in the profession. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Goliver.
Coach, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excited about being on with you. Now, I shouldn't be that excited. I didn't finish my time at West Point, but I was enough of in that Army culture that Army and Navy, we're not supposed to get along very well, man. But it's pretty cool when I looked up and saw you spent some time at the Naval Academy and all that good stuff. We're diving into that, man. But definitely excited about diving into your career here, and want to go ahead and start it off with the same question we always ask. Played linebacker in high school in Ohio. Played sprint football at the Naval Academy. But obviously there's service that kind of ends with your career at the Naval Academy. When did you decide, at what point, that you wanted to be a part of this great profession?
Yeah, so the point where it really hit home that coaching was a calling for me was we were on deployment when we got the message from the Marine Corps about whether you want to continue to stay in or start to transition out. And that was when I started to kind of think about what was going to be next. I kind of decided that I no longer wanted to stay in the Marine Corps. Really enjoyed my time there, but as an officer and you start to move up, you start to get a little bit separated from the men. And so I was ready to move on. I was kind of looking at different options, and, a lot of guys, my peer group was going on getting MBAs and everything, and just nothing was really clicking for me that made it worth all the studying for the MBA and the GMAT. And that was when it really dawned on me that, like, all my happiest times were on a football field. And when I started kind of pulling on that string a little bit more, I realized how many similarities there were between what I loved about the Marine Corps and coaching, and then started to pull that string a little bit more on kind of my experiences in life and how much I enjoyed teaching, how much I enjoyed, coaching youth when I got the opportunity to as I was growing up. So, but I would say that moment was when I really started to reflect on what was next after the Marine Corps. And as I started to pull that string, realized that coaching really was the calling for me, that it would give me the chance to do everything I loved that I was doing in the Marine Corps, will also get me back to football.
Yeah. Well, you kind of did it for me there. You talked about the parallels and a little bit of the synergy of football and the military. Obviously two totally different things. One's a game, one is real life, but at the same time, there is a lot of crossover. Just through your time in the Marines, what were some of the experiences and lessons that you learned that, might not necessarily apply to football? We'll get into some of that kind of stuff, but just little things that you walk away from and say, hey, I'm a better man because of these experiences.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in the Marine Corps, you end up you wear a lot of hats, right? You're and you really become, a father figure, an older brother to these 18, 19, sometimes 24-year-old kids, that are just trying to figure out life when they enlist in the Marine Corps. And that's one of the parallels that I've found with coaching, especially at the college level. I tell my Marine friends all the time, like, I'm really just coaching Lance Corporals that just happen to be a little bit better at football, and
right.
But the same life struggles, they're on their own for the first time. They're trying to figure out who they are outside of mom and dad's roof. Maybe they've lost a parent and they're trying to figure out that side, girlfriend issues, so as much as in the Marine Corps, you're training for, really life and death and preparing for combat, you're also, on a day-to-day being a mentor for them, teaching them about life. So that really was a great experience for me, just learning that there's more than just, getting them to the field and training them in the skill sets they need. It's about that transformative process of developing them into men that can either transition back into the civilian sector and be better civilians than they were when they entered the Marine Corps, or continue on to great careers in the Marine Corps. So I think there's a lot of parallels between that and college football.
No doubt about it. I mean, honestly, if you substitute, a couple words in there, you sound like almost any coach has got on here and talking about why they love, the coaching profession when it really comes down to it. Obviously what you just mentioned puts a lot of perspective on the relationships and mentorship and leadership and all those types of things that when it's dealing with other people. But what experiences did you have in the Marines that helped prepare you just to be a graduate assistant? Not necessarily the coaching aspect, but the grind that kind of comes with being a GA in comparison to the Marines, which is its own type of grind within itself.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for one, you'd be surprised. Like, there's a lot of PowerPoint in the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
a lot more than people probably anticipate, right? So something as simple as that, like learning how to put a PowerPoint together at a level of detail that when you brief it up to the colonel and the general, he's comfortable with the plan, right? The hours that you're putting in, the time away from family. I think Tom Brady said it at one point and got some slack for it, but my wife and I have treated the last 2 seasons very similarly to a deployment. It's not 100% the same. I get to come home most nights, but in terms of how much time we're going to actually get to spend together, that's kind of that deployment that we went through together kind of prepared us for that mindset of, hey, we're going to go into this season. It's going to be a couple months where we're not going to spend a ton of time together, but your support means everything, and I'll catch you on the flip side type deal,
Yeah. Now, the positive thing is you didn't walk into the profession basically cold turkey. During your time in the Marines, you were able to coach a few different teams, including a team of active duty military, as well as some high school football there in Japan. Talk about these experiences and why'd you want to spend time coaching football while being obviously active in the military?
Yeah, so after my deployment, I got stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and got put in they call it a B-billet in the Marine Corps, but it's kind of a non-deployable unit where your op tempo is a little bit slower. You were more in my case, we were the training cadre for a deploying unit, so we had a little bit more time. So that allowed me the opportunity, and at that point, I knew I wanted to get into coaching.
Yeah.
So when I got to Okinawa, I started looking into what opportunities there were, found that there was a league of about 4 teams on Okinawa, 3 of them military bases scattered throughout the island, and then one of the teams was a local team of Japanese people that had formed their own American football team. And so I got tied in with them, started coaching them. Unfortunately, we hit COVID 3 games into the season. We were a spring season. But had a blast doing that. Again, that was a lot of, junior Marines that had played football in high school, decided to enlist in the Marine Corps, but still had that love for football.
Yeah.
So that was an awesome time because it was a chance to, hone my coaching profession, right? Kind of on an island on my own, having to watch clinics and whatnot to try to learn. I got made the offensive coordinator with not much offense experience in my playing days, so a lot of learning, right? But it was also a really cool experience to see these Marines going out there and doing something that they love and reconnecting with that childhood passion that they had. And so that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, COVID cut that a little short, and we weren't able to get it back up and running during my time on the island, but we were able to get the high school team out there. So there's 2 high schools on Okinawa that are DoD high schools. So military service members send their kids to these schools.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, actually, in a non-COVID environment. They actually fly up to like mainland Korea and mainland Japan to play the other DoD high schools in a Pacific league. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we were restricted to the island. So we actually played the same high school 4 times in a row. It was a unique experience, but a lot of fun. It's a different level of high school ball, but just especially coaching the JV kids, teaching them the basics, almost like youth football, because between COVID and then all their moves, a lot of them had never played a down a tackle football, maybe had played a flag football league here or there. So really getting back to the basics with those kids. And it was different from the Marine team for sure, the skill level and everything, but a lot of joy just seeing those kids, the progression they made just in a four game season from, training camp day one to the end of the season, and getting to see the joy as they, make their first tackle and get excited about that. So definitely a different level than what I'm at here at UCLA, but I think that's the beauty of the game, is that there's something awesome about coaching at every level. So
indeed, man. I know you mentioned you listen to podcasts over time. You might have heard me say this before, but I mean, one of my best experiences was my first year actually doing middle school football. I mean, because I had all these cool plays drawn up, but the questions were, Coach, how do I put my chin strap on? How do I put my knee pads in? Catch a football how? And man, you really have to hone in onto the fundamentals, and you have to go seek that knowledge yourself for positions you're not familiar with. So I'm sure those 2 years, especially with two Stark differently, a JV team and some guys that's already played football and that are active duty military guys. What an awesome experience to kind of help prep you for that. As you begin to wrap up your career service in the Marines, you decide to participate in the Soldiers to Sidelines development program. On this podcast, at some point in time, we've talked about it a couple times. But for anybody that doesn't remember that, including myself, can you talk a little bit about how you learned about this program and what this program did to help you prepare to step into collegiate coaching? And then, where do you find information about it at?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't say enough good things about Soldiers Sidelines. Founded and led by Harrison Bernstein, longtime NFL strength coach. And he kind of founded the program as he was coaching at George Washington University and setting up a leadership curriculum there. And in 2016, he realized that there was similar to what we've talked about, there's a ton of similarity between military service and coaching youth sports, and realized that a lot of the issues we were having with veterans coming back from the military had to do with the loss of a sense of purpose, right? And so what better way to give them a sense of purpose than to get them back into leadership roles, impacting the community. So he founded Soldiers Sidelines back in 2016. I found out about him when I got to Okinawa, again, just searching for different coaching opportunities, searching for different, hey, how do I get into this profession? I know I'm going to get out of the military in a couple of years. How do I prepare myself? And there's tons of different organizations that help. There's something called Troops for Teachers. So I figured there's got to be something, right? Somebody else had to see the connection. I can't be the only one making this transition. And so I think I probably Googled them and stumbled upon Soldiers to Sidelines. And you mentioned I'm from Ohio. They were happening to do a strength and conditioning seminar at Miami of Ohio that was scheduled for sometime in 2020 before COVID hit. So I said, oh, great, a chance to go home and kind of do this. And so I signed up for it, and unfortunately COVID hit. But I say unfortunately, for me, it was almost more fortunate because COVID, like a lot of people, it forced Soldiers Sidelines to go virtual. And so they ended up going into a virtual seminar format, and I actually participated in their first virtual seminar in 2020. And then from there, you go through the initial certification seminar. You're one of about 100 people to start, usually about 60 by the end. And you're just kind of a face on a screen. You're doing the homeworks and whatnot, and you're participating. But then at the end, by becoming certified, you get the chance to sign up for the membership development program, which is just a continuing education that involves not just football education, but leadership curriculum, as well as just mentorship in the profession. So I jumped at that opportunity to sign up for that. Now I know they've grown a lot since when I went through it. So I know they're changing that curriculum a little bit, but when I was going through it, it was small enough that I actually got pretty much weekly one-on-one conversations with Harrison, as the director and kind of the leadership mentor. And, And then on the football side, their director of football at the time was Del Smith, who also became a great mentor for me, and really prepared me. I say all the time, Harrison made me a better Marine Corps leader during my last couple of years in the Marine Corps, not just a better coach. And then the curriculum also, when I got here to UCLA, I found that the curriculum was a lot of card drawing, a lot of film breakdown, right? Teaching you those skills that you kind of take for granted.
Yeah.
But really prepared me when I got here to UCLA to be ready for that. And then ultimately, Harrison was the one that got me connected to our chief of staff here at UCLA, who's also a Marine Corps veteran, Naval Academy grad, and got me a volunteer opportunity here and sent me here and said, go do some great work and we'll see what comes from there. So.
And now, a quick word from Hader Athletic. Since 1954, Hader Athletic has been your trusted partner in football practice equipment. Handmade in the USA with care and dedication, our products are crafted to elevate your team's performance. But what truly sets us apart? It's our unwavering commitment to customer service. When you reach out, you'll be speaking to a real person with extensive product knowledge that prioritizes you getting your equipment fast. Experience the Hader difference today. Visit HaderAthletic.com and join the community of coaches who trust us for quality, reliability, and expertise. Hader Athletic. For coaches, by coaches. Save 15% on your next order by using promo code AFCA2024 at checkout. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, man. What an awesome story, man. And honestly, all of it's fantastic. But I think the coolest thing that you mentioned there was, some preparation on how to draw cards and, some of these very detailed things that you do as a kind of entry level coach at a size university like yours, or really anywhere, to be brutally honest with you. You're going to draw cards, you're going to break down film, you're going to do some of those kind of tedious tasks where a lot of coaches, they learn that on the fly. You kind of walked in a little bit more prepared probably than most coaches, huh?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, you almost take it for granted because you forget where you started from. And then, when we get new entry-level guys and ask them to draw cards, it's like, I got to remind myself as now trying to train them up, someone did take the time to train me, I didn't just have this skill set naturally,
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. So you kind of talked about the segue there to the volunteer role at UCLA, but just give us a little bit more detail. How did that whole thing go down and really where you're at in life? What made you say, yeah, this is going to be the chance I take for this to get in a profession is with this volunteer role?
Yeah, so I say all the time I was really lucky and blessed that the DoD has a thing called Skill Bridge that allows up to your last 6 months in the military, you actually can go volunteer at a civilian organization that you want to transition into, where you stay in the DoD. And so you're still, the whole intent is that you have a paycheck and you can go volunteer to try to earn a role and transition out of the military. And so, but it is very command dependent, right? Because your command's not going to get backfilled your position. So I was just very blessed that my command in Okinawa at the time was downsizing. So they were actually getting rid of the role I was in. We had kind of consolidated it to one position. And so I was pretty lucky there. And then my command, my OIC at the time was very supportive of the transition. A huge football fan, so that definitely helped. Yeah. But just an awesome guy, and he was very supportive of it, did everything he could to make sure that I got approved for that. So I do say I was pretty lucky in the sense that volunteer opportunity at UCLA was kind of a no-brainer, knowing that I was going to have a steady paycheck for a couple months while I figured out the role.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came here in January of 2022. No promise of a job, just, Bryce McDonald, our chief of staff here, when he met me, he said, hey, just get to work and we'll see what happens in 6 months. And again, being blessed and lucky, the GA at the time was graduating. He had finished his GA eligibility, so he was graduating and transitioning to the analyst role. And I'd been there for about 2 months, and Bryce and Coach Kelly came to me and asked me if I wanted to take his spot, and I jumped at the opportunity. So I definitely, my timeline's been very, very blessed and fortunate, but just put my head down and work and see what happens.
Well, you you said blessed and fortunate, which you definitely are. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I think what's kind of cool, and I could be totally wrong here, is the soldiers to sideline thing. This was something that, you know, got presented to you, but you still have to go actively show up and do all the training and do all the learning. As you mentioned, it was 100 at one point and then dwindled down to 60. So 40 people just don't finish it. And then the skill bridge opportunity to be able to, you know, kind of work for 6 months. You know, with pay, but kind of hone those skills. Does everybody take advantage of that, or were you kind of one of the ones that say, hey, you know what, I can go and do this and get paid. Let me hop on this, or you know, what who typically kind of takes that opportunity, I guess is the question.
Yeah, it's definitely one you got to learn about. It's kind of a newer program, you know, and then like I said, it's a lot of your command has to be able to support it.
Yeah.
Right. But it was a process, you know, getting approved and everything, because you have to show them that time you spend in 6 months is going to help you transition, you know, because to be honest, unfortunately, there are people that take advantage of it and say, hey, I'm going to go intern at X company for 6 months. And then when they get checked up on, they, you know, been not doing anything for 6 months. So
right.
You do have to apply for it and everything. But yeah, it's definitely something I encourage, you know, active duty service members to look into. Not everyone just timing wise can do it, but
yeah.
And you also have to have the support of your command, which I think I had both from just how awesome my OIC was at the time, my officer in charge, but also just the work I had done for him leading up to that I think I had shown that he, you know, I had put in the work for him, so he was kind of willing to help me out a little bit, you know.
No doubt. Yeah, I guess the point I was trying to make there was like, yeah, obviously blessed and fortunate, but you also were definitely aggressive in the approach of this and taking advantage of any of these opportunities that can help you, you know, get to that ultimate goal of being a coach. And so hats off to you for, you know, been a jump starter on that deal. Now, in your time at UCLA, you've recently had to navigate a staff change. You know, how did you go about navigating this as a GA? Obviously, kind of in the world that you were living in the military, you see people kind of come and go, and sometimes you're the one that's coming and going. So I'm sure that part was still never easy, I would imagine. But I would imagine that part not so much. But you know, was there any worry about your job or anything like that?
Yeah, I think anytime there's a staff change, especially at the head coach position, you know, everyone's a little bit on edge until, you know, they get the word of who's being brought back. But Coach Foster was pretty much an internal hire, right? He had been our running back coach for a while, especially the 2 years I'd been here, and him and I had a pretty good relationship. So I felt pretty comfortable. But like I said, until he sits down with you and says you're good, everyone's a little on edge. But it was a pretty internal hire. We were all fired up about it. Players were super fired up. The staff was super fired up. So luckily for me on the defensive side, very minimal staff turnover, really at all. We have a new D-line coach, but that had kind of happened when Coach Kelly was still here. So very minimal staff turnover on the defensive side. Our D-line coach from last year got promoted to the defensive coordinator role. So obviously he's going through that transition. But I think both from the military, like you mentioned, and then this is the 3 years in football, or going on 3 years, and this is the third defensive coordinator I've worked with as a GA. So, you know, I got a little experience of it last year when we had a new defensive coordinator come in. And I think the biggest thing when the staff turns over and you're somebody that stayed is finding that balance of letting them know what's been done before. Right? We had an internal hire, so a little bit different at the head coaching level, but what I experienced with the defense coordinator last year was letting him know what's been done before, just so he knows what everyone in the building's used to, but making it very clear that it's now his job and his team, or in our case, like defense, to mold how he wants, right? And so finding that balance, and I think I navigated that pretty well last year with our defense coordinator coming in. But yeah, I think that's key, is just, you know, letting him know what's been done so that he knows where the changes are going to be, so he knows where he might feel some resistance from either players or other coaches that remained on staff, but also making it clear that you're not trying to tell him how to do the job or how you want it done, right? You're just trying to let him know where he's going to be making changes, so he can anticipate that friction a little bit.
Absolutely. Now, you're if I'm correct here, you're going into your third year as a graduate assistant.
Right.
What has been the biggest change from a strictly football coach, no Marine, none, from a football coach? What has been the biggest piece of growth that you've seen in yourself?
I'd say at first, when I first got here, I was working with the DBs and had zero DB experience. So 2022 season was kind of cool because I was learning the position almost as much as I was trying to coach the position and help our DB coach. And then now that I'm back in the linebacker room, I think what I learned from that 2022 season about just the level of detail that it takes helped me to take a step back from the linebacker position and also try to dive into it at that level of detail. I think sometimes looking back, if I had just been put with linebackers right away, I may have been overconfident about, I played the position, I know
right,
how to coach it, right? But it made me take a step back and go, let me really dive into what I'm teaching at the linebacker position. Obviously, as a GA, you're tied into what the position coach is teaching and you're supporting him.
Yeah.
But just really made me take a look at those details instead of just, I played the position, here's how I played it, and go from there. And just the confidence with the guys, and then ultimately also watching film. Just as the more hours you get watching the film, the better you start to see it. And year one up in the box, was 1,000 miles per hour, and then by the bowl game this past year, you're like, okay, I'm really seeing the game a lot better than I probably did week one of 2022. So I think it's just the reps of both the film and the game time.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That's kind of my favorite thing since I've been out of the business. I never forget my first time in the box. We were playing the University of Arkansas, and it was a money game for them. And man, it was so much going on. It seemed like it was 100 players out there, and I had a lot of responsibility. And now I watch a game on TV, and number 14 made the tackles counter. He missed the block. You know what I'm saying? And you just you can see so much now, and it just gets more and more with time, man. So it's one.
Yeah, getting that personnel on the defense side, trying to figure out the offensive personnel can be pretty stressful. I tell you. They got 4 guys subbing in. You're trying to figure out who's subbing out. You're trying to find any indicator you can.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Well, the good thing that I think that's changed. More kind of still joking here, but. Around that time, this is when people start getting really crazy with the jerseys, and they were doing the dark on dark numbers. And man, I would be in the box with the binoculars, like, Coach, I got no clue who just left and who came in. Man, that was a tough time. Man, this has been awesome, man. Typically we don't have many graduate assistants on the podcast, but obviously you got a very unique story. But man, you speak extremely well, very mature, all those type of things. And I know in this profession, man, you got to be where your feet are. And I don't want to ask you any questions. It's going to kind of put you in a situation where you're talking about what's next. But I know the best is definitely yet to come for you. Do you got any kind of lofty goals? Not necessarily about where you're going to be, but hope to be a DC soon. Hope to be, get some offensive experience. Want to be a head coach long term. What are kind of some of those general goals for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's taking it one day at a time and just adding value where I can in the role that I'm in.
Yeah.
Definitely want to be a linebacker coach and the chance to run the room and lead those guys, but and then eventually work up to defense coordinator and eventually a head coach goal is the ultimate goal. But for me, it's just taking it one day at a time, adding value where I can. Like I mentioned with the head coaching change here, like we're fired up for the Coach Foster era, and the energy that he's brought to the program. And so however I can best support that, as we transition from it and have a new staff that's getting kind of adjusted to UCLA and helping them out from the recruiting staff to the offensive staff, wherever I can add value, that's kind of how I kind of operate, is just take it one day at a time. I think that's something that's been a little bit of an adjustment as you talk kind of transitioning jobs and how you get the next job. As you mentioned, I'm still a GA, so it's hard to give people advice on how to get the next job because I'm right there with them, and I think that's something that from the Marine Corps, it was just, put your head down and work for 3 years, and then, you'll pick your head up and somebody will send you an email that says, hey, you're headed here now and you're going to do this job. And you say, yes, sir. And you, you go do that. So that's, I went through that this off season, kind of learning that something I need to probably do a little bit better is building the network outside the building.
Yeah.
But not letting that distract from, the current role, and finding that balance. You mentioned I listen to the podcast all the time, and people's advice that don't be the guy that's on Football Scoop every day, 24/7, scrolling it, right? And just be where your feet are and do the work. And I'm hopeful that that'll eventually lead to something. Like I said, linebacker position coach, but yeah, just one day at a time for me is really, and just pouring everything I have into the guys here and building this culture up. So.
There you go. I mean, that's going to take you a long way right there. Now, you said, and as you were answering that previous question, that you're not in a situation to give advice to guys on taking the next job because you hadn't done it yet. But I am going to ask you for some advice here for any young guys that's taking their first graduate assistant opportunity. It's staring them right in the face. They're reporting here over the next couple months potentially. What advice you got for a person taking an entry level position with a staff, as you just done it, but you got a wealth of experience in life?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just be ready to work first and foremost. And then I think it's just, like I said, adding value where you can, finding any opportunity. Coach mentions something in passing. If he says it, it's probably because he wants it done, even if he's not specifically giving it as a task. Something as simple as, hey, it'd be nice to have the calls up on the board, right? And jumping at that opportunity to put those calls up on the board. Making sure what you put out as product is high quality, right? Whether you're the guy stapling the practice scripts and that's the only task you really have, like making sure those staples are lined up and no coach ever looks at what you've done and says, what the heck's going on with this,
Right.
And just being a positive influence in the building. I think the young GA energy goes a long way. But yeah, just being ready to work and being ready to provide value when you can, and then learning on your own. I think, hopefully if you're a young GA, you get a coach that takes you under his wing, but whether you do or don't, there's also a ton of opportunities to learn out there, through AFCA's resources and then everything else that's out there. I mean, it's 2024, like, YouTube, anything you can do to just learn on your own a little bit at a time, and then just trust the process and trust that that first defensive meeting you sit in on might sound like they're speaking Chinese when they start talking about match coverages and tools and everything, and just write it all down, and eventually by the end of camp some of it'll make sense, and then a little bit more of it'll make sense, and that's really the biggest piece of advice I got, is just trust that you don't need to know it all right away. Just do what you can do.
Amen. Well, great advice there, Coach. I sure appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you and talk about a very unique career that's just getting started, man. So I'll be rooting for you as you roll through the profession. Before I let you go, though, man, I'd love for you to take the opportunity to share any social media if you have that, or emails. So if anybody's got questions, I mean, I would assume you might get a few questions about, some of these programs in the military that helped you kind of get to where you are. But yeah, if you got any social or email, and please share.
Yeah, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Like you said, not a ton of GAs get the opportunity to be on the podcast, so really appreciate the opportunity to mainly share Soldiers to Sidelines and what they've done for me. So my Twitter handle's at Anthony_Goliver. So pretty easy, just my name, but my name is spelled like Go Liver is the easiest way to remember it. Goliver. So just one L there, but yeah, feel free, especially any veterans or active duty service members, especially, but anyone, feel free to reach out. I can talk to you more about Soldiers to Sidelines or just different opportunities, and really, again, appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my story and about what Soldiers Sidelines has done for me.
No doubt, man, and my pleasure, and look forward to keeping up with UCLA this upcoming season, and I'll be definitely cheering you on, although you'll be behind the scenes a little bit. I know you're putting in some of the work back there, man, okay? Appreciate you.
Really appreciate it. Go Bruins.
Later.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.